One of the most shocking stories from Diddy's infamous freak-off parties takes place during one of the wildest weekends he ever threw at his Miami mansion back in the early 2000s. The event was one of those rare gatherings where only the most elite, famous and powerful were invited. His guest list that allegedly included A-list rappers, athletes, top models, and even actors from Hollywood. As the night unfolded, the entire mansion seemed to become a playground for excess, debauchery, and anything-goes energy. It started with a private dinner that featured top-tier chefs flown in just for the occasion. The vibe was swanky, but as soon as the dinner ended, things quickly took a sharp turn into total chaos. Diddy was known for his no-rules approach when it came to these kinds of parties. He was essentially the ringmaster, orchestrating everything to make sure that no one was ever bored or too sober. The rooms around the mansion were filled with an endless supply of high-end liquor, and in some rooms, you'd find rare substances that catered to every possible vice. One of the party's more notorious elements was a playroom set up specifically for guests who wanted to let go of their inhibitions. The room itself had velvet-lined walls, dim lighting, and oversized couches, all designed for comfort and indulgence. People were free to come and go as they pleased, and the atmosphere felt like something straight out of a James Bond movie, except with a lot more people wearing little clothing. As the night went on, the energy in the room became increasingly hedonistic. Diddy and his entourage were said to be sitting back, enjoying the scene, occasionally laughing or making deals in the corner, while others let loose. Models stripped down to lingerie, while some of the guests started to partake in impromptu competitions to see who could perform the wildest stunts, from dancing in the pool to flashing cash. According to those who attended, it was the kind of event where all manner of behavior was not only tolerated but encouraged, as long as you had the right connections or clout. But the story that left many guests shaking their heads and whispering for years afterwards, it involved a married celebrity couple. The wife, a famous actress, and the husband, a successful rapper who had an ongoing beef with some of the other stars at the event. As the night went on, the husband allegedly got into a heated argument with one of Diddy's friends. This argument quickly escalated, leading the rapper to storm off to another part of the mansion. What happened next shocked everyone. The wife, who had been seen throughout the night flirting with various men, including a famous NBA player, disappeared from the crowd for a while. Sources claim she was seen sneaking into a private back room with none other than Diddy himself. Word spread quickly that they were alone for nearly 30 minutes, and the energy in the mansion shifted. When they finally emerged, the actress and Diddy both had smiles on their faces, and while no one could confirm exactly what happened in that room, it was clear something intense had gone down. As the party raged on, rumors swirled about what had transpired, and many of the guests were talking about how the actress seemed unusually calm and distant from her husband when they eventually reunited. But the rapper wasn't having it. He reportedly confronted Diddy the next morning about what had happened in that back room, leading to an explosive confrontation that made the rounds among partygoers. To make matters even crazier, a few days later, several of the party's attendees were spotted at a VIP lounge in New York City, and it became clear that some relationships had been permanently altered. Some guests reported receiving hush money to keep quiet about what had happened, but the story was so wild that the whispers only grew louder. No one ever fully confirmed the details of that night, but over time, more people have come forward with pieces of the story. Diddy, being the master of keeping things low-key, never publicly commented, and the party became an urban legend, a symbol of the crazy, unchecked excess of the early 2000s hip-hop scene. People still talk about it in hushed tones, speculating about the crazy parties he threw and the secrets that were locked behind the mansion doors. The freak-off parties have since become the stuff of legend, with stories that leave people shaking their heads, wondering just how wild things got when the lights went down, and the world's most powerful celebrities were given free rein to indulge their darkest desires. The fact that no one fully knows the truth about what happened that night only adds to the mystery and allure. One of the most notorious stories surrounding Diddy's freak-off parties comes from a wild night in Miami circa 2003. Diddy, known for throwing the most extravagant, over-the-top parties, had rented out his multi-million-dollar mansion for an exclusive, invite-only event. The guest list was a who's who of the entertainment world. A-list rappers, top supermodels, Hollywood actors, and even some heavyweight athletes. Everyone knew this wasn't just a party. It was an experience, a chance to let go of all rules and let the night take them wherever it would. It all started innocently enough with champagne flowing and everyone mingling by the pool. Diddy, the ultimate host, was playing the role of the ringmaster, floating between groups, offering shots of his signature Ciroc vodka, and making sure the music was always on point. The vibe was high energy, a mix of luxury and excess. As the night wore on, though, the atmosphere began to shift. The pool area became the focal point. Models in bikinis, and some in nothing at all, dancing provocatively, while the music bumped from a private DJ booth set up just for the occasion. But as the drinks flowed and the temperature rose, things took a turn. Diddy, always the man in control, had set up an entire wing of the mansion as a private area, far removed from the main party. Rumors had long circulated that Diddy's freak-off parties involved more than just music and alcohol. Supposedly, there were rooms where certain guests could disappear for intimate moments without anyone asking questions. It wasn't long before these rumors were confirmed. Guests who had been milling about in the main house started trickling into the private rooms, first in small groups, and then, it seemed, everyone was sneaking away to one of the designated playrooms. But what happened in those rooms would make the most outrageous Hollywood parties seem tame. According to multiple sources who were there, the first major shock came when one of the world's top supermodels, who was known for her high-profile relationships with A-list men, was seen disappearing into a back room with one of Diddy's closest friends, a famous hip-hop producer known for his connections in the industry. What happened next was a spectacle that no one could have anticipated. Within minutes, the producer came rushing out of the room, visibly upset, while the model remained inside, seemingly unaffected. Word quickly spread that things had gotten heated in the room, but it wasn't what anyone expected. The producer was allegedly so flustered and embarrassed that he had to be escorted out of the party, while the model returned to the main area as if nothing had happened, smiling and acting completely unfazed. At this point, Diddy was informed of the drama, and as the host, he took control of the situation. He calmly entered the back room, and according to some guests, had a private conversation with the model. Diddy, always the master of the room, managed to smooth things over, making sure that no major tensions boiled over. But the whole interaction felt odd, as if there were unspoken rules everyone was following. What happened behind closed doors was never fully revealed, but from that point on, whispers of other, even wilder things happening behind those doors began circulating. As the night wore on, it only got stranger. There were reports of a very well-known married actor showing up and acting unusually distant from his wife. He reportedly spent most of the evening in the pool with a group of models, flirting heavily with one, then disappearing into a side room with yet another famous actress. The two were alone for what seemed like hours, and when they finally came back to the main room, they both looked disheveled and highly uncomfortable. But the most shocking part was that no one seemed to care. It was just another part of the madness that was unfolding. Around 4 a.m., as the party started to wind down, a private jet was apparently prepped to whisk away a handful of guests who had business elsewhere. No one knew exactly what business meant, but it was rumored that some of the highest profile figures in the room had been promised exclusive deals or meetings if they left the party early. The group that left included a few major stars and a couple of wealthy businessmen, but they all left quietly, as if trying to avoid any sort of attention or paparazzi. By the time the sun started rising, most of the remaining guests were either passed out on couches, still mingling, or having private conversations in corners. Diddy was said to be sitting in his personal suite, counting the night's takings in terms of connections made, business deals struck, and, of course, the media buzz that would inevitably follow. The party had been kept quiet enough that no major stories surfaced the next day, but the word was out. Diddy had created an environment where anything could happen, and for those lucky or unlucky enough to be invited, the experience would be a story they'd never forget. When the morning came, Diddy threw a breakfast gathering by the pool, acting as though nothing unusual had happened. Guests were encouraged to mingle again, and most acted as if the previous night's excesses were just part of the glamorous life they led. But a select few, those who had witnessed the more shocking events, could hardly speak about what they had seen. The legend of Diddy's freak-off parties only grew from that night, with countless rumors and what happened behind closed doors, stories swirling around for years. Even today, the full scope of what went down that weekend in Miami remains one of the most talked about, yet never fully revealed chapters of Diddy's party history. What makes it truly shocking is that while the wild events that night were shocking on their own, it was the level of control and power Diddy maintained throughout the evening, keeping everyone in line, keeping things flowing, and ensuring the secrets stayed secrets, that left people talking for years afterward. He orchestrated chaos like no one else.
One of the most legendary and insane freak-off parties thrown by Diddy in the 90s happened in the early days of Bad Boy Records, when Diddy, then known as Puff Daddy, was riding high on the success of hits like Mo Money Mo Problems and I'll Be Missing You. This was an era when the music industry was at its peak of excess, and Diddy was quickly cementing himself not just as a mogul, but as the party king of hip-hop. His infamous parties were the stuff of urban legend, but one specific party from 1997 still stands out as one of the wildest. The venue? Diddy's multi-million-dollar penthouse in Manhattan, a sprawling luxury space that had everything you could imagine: panoramic views of the city, multiple rooms with decadent furnishings, a bar stocked with the finest liquor, and a sound system capable of shaking the entire building. The invite list: pure A-list chaos. Rappers, actors, supermodels, athletes, and even a few Wall Street big shots. It was a who's who of the 90s cultural elite. The party kicked off at midnight, and from the moment the first guest walked in, it was clear this wasn't going to be an ordinary night. The mood was electric, a mix of champagne-soaked luxury and reckless abandon. But it wasn't until the clock hit 2 a.m. that things took a truly surreal turn. The no rules rule. Diddy had made it very clear that night. There were no rules. It wasn't just a party. It was a free-for-all. Guests were told to check their inhibitions at the door, and the vibe was contagious. Champagne flowed in a continuous stream. The bass from the speakers rattled the windows, and everyone seemed to forget they were even in New York City. But in the middle of this wildness, it was Diddy who kept everything under control, or so it seemed. By 3 a.m., people were already slipping into private rooms scattered throughout the penthouse. Some rooms were full of people smoking cigars and discussing business deals, while others were less professional, with guests engaging in more intimate acts. Diddy's reputation for fostering chaos while maintaining an air of complete control was on full display. He had private rooms set up, but he was also always floating between the crowd, making sure the vibe was right. He didn't drink much himself. Instead, he watched the party unfold as a kind of orchestrator, overseeing everything like a conductor of an unhinged symphony. The bathroom incident. As the night wore on, things began to get increasingly reckless. One of the wildest moments happened when a famous R&B singer, who had been openly flirting with a supermodel throughout the night, disappeared into one of the bathrooms. After about 20 minutes, the singer emerged, visibly flustered. He was laughing and stumbling, but there was something in his demeanor that was off. He brushed it off as a joke, but whispers started circulating that something had gone down in that bathroom. And it wasn't just about drugs or alcohol. The singer's entourage was quick to hush the rumors, but people noticed that he didn't stick around much longer after that. The singer was reportedly seen in the early morning hours trying to leave the party, but he was stopped at the door by Diddy. What happened in that bathroom was never fully confirmed, but the rumors were wild. Some claimed that Diddy had somehow orchestrated a situation in which the singer was caught in a compromising position with a well-known actress. Others whispered that the whole thing was a setup designed by Diddy to remind people who was truly in charge. The disappearing act. But it wasn't just the bathroom drama that kept people talking. Around 4 a.m., a major actor who had been one of the biggest names in Hollywood at the time mysteriously disappeared. He had arrived early and was being courted by some of Diddy's inner circle. But by the time the after-party had fully kicked off, no one knew where he had gone. Some guests claimed that the actor was taken to a secret room and that he was negotiating with Diddy about future business ventures. Others swore they saw the actor sneaking into the bedroom of a young, famous model who had been partying with him earlier in the night. The actor didn't resurface until much later, looking slightly disheveled and uncharacteristically quiet. Whatever went down that night was never fully explained, but the entire episode left everyone wondering if Diddy had once again played a role in orchestrating some sort of high-stakes power move. The run-in with the wife The most jaw-dropping moment of the night, however, came when a famous married rapper arrived at the party with his wife, an equally famous model and actress. By 5 a.m., the two had somehow become separated in the chaos, with the rapper being seen chatting up a young, up-and-coming singer who was known for her provocative behavior. The rapper and the singer were seen heading toward one of the private rooms in the penthouse, but it wasn't long before his wife noticed the two of them disappear into the same space. What happened in that room became the subject of heated gossip the next day. When the wife confronted her husband, things got heated, and the rapper was allegedly seen storming out of the party. But this wasn't just a regular argument. The entire party, you could feel the tension as the rapper and his wife had a public confrontation on the balcony. Some guests claimed that Diddy had intervened, but instead of trying to calm things down, he simply handed the rapper a drink, told him to chill, and let the whole thing play out. No one could figure out if Diddy was intentionally manipulating the situation, or if he was just too used to this kind of drama to care. The aftermath. As the sun began to rise, the party was still going strong, but things started to slowly wind down. People left in small groups, their faces a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration, some trying to act like everything that had happened the night before was normal, while others were simply too stunned to speak. The night was shrouded in an air of mystery and secrecy. In the days following the party, no one truly knew what went down in those rooms, and many of the guests refused to speak about it. Diddy, as always, was the last man standing. He watched everyone leave with a knowing smile, aware that the party he had just thrown would become yet another story added to his growing legend. The Freak-Off Party of 1997 remains one of the most talked about events in hip-hop history, and the stories that came out of it only grew more outrageous as time passed. Some said that Diddy had masterminded the entire evening as a power play to establish himself as the undisputed king of not just the music industry, but the entire celebrity world. Others thought it was simply a party that spiraled out of control, but no one would ever fully know the truth. What everyone agreed on, though, was that Diddy had thrown an unforgettable night, one that left everyone involved with stories they couldn't or wouldn't tell. But if you were there, it's likely you never forgot the feeling of being in the presence of someone who seemed to control not just the music industry, but everything around him.
In 2010, Diddy was already a global icon, a mogul whose reputation for throwing lavish, over-the-top parties had only grown over the years. By then, he wasn't just the head of Bad Boy Records, but also a lifestyle brand, media mogul, and fashion force. His parties, especially the freak-off events, were legendary for their wildness, secrecy, and the who's who of attendees. One particular freak-off party in 2010, hosted at his Miami mansion during Art Basel, would go down as one of the most insane, jaw-dropping nights in his history. The setting: it was an early December weekend, and Miami was alive with the energy of Art Basel, the annual art fair that drew artists, celebrities, business tycoons, and socialites from all over the world. Diddy, ever the master of creating exclusive moments, decided to throw a private Art Basel after-party at his palatial waterfront estate. Invitations were as exclusive as they came. No plus ones. No entry without being on the VIP list. The guest list was made up of the who's who, A-listers from Hollywood, top-tier musicians, elite athletes, and high-powered business moguls. Rumor had it that Diddy was pulling in a few international billionaires, and some of the world's most famous supermodels were confirmed. The mansion was a vision of excess. The night began with a private art installation in the main living room, where renowned contemporary artists displayed provocative works, blending the worlds of high art and hip-hop culture. Champagne flowed freely, and the music, a mixture of hip-hop, EDM, and live performances from some of Diddy's favorite artists, played non-stop. But, as always, it wasn't just the art or the music that made this night infamous. It was the energy, the people, and the chaos that unfolded behind the closed doors. The arrival. Diddy arrived around midnight, wearing an all-white suit, looking every bit the part of a king holding court. He made his entrance through a private door, past a line of security, and into the center of the gathering, where people immediately parted to make way for him. His arrival marked the beginning of an unforgettable night. As soon as he entered, people started gravitating toward him. He was immediately surrounded by a group of high-profile figures, actors, models, and even a couple of famous athletes who were whispering about a deal that Diddy was reportedly about to close with an international brand. From the outside, it looked like just another elite networking event. But as the night wore on, things began to spiral in ways no one could have predicted. The first shock. Around 2 a.m., the party started to get wilder. Guests who were still in the main room were openly making deals, taking shots of Diddy's signature Ciroc, and laughing. But there was a growing tension in the air. It was clear that something was about to happen. The kind of thing you wouldn't read about in the media the next day, but that would be whispered about for years. Then came the first shock. A famous supermodel, known for her high-profile relationships, and rumored to be dating one of Diddy's closest business associates, was seen sneaking off with a well-known actor. They disappeared into a private room, which was fitted with dark, red lighting and velvet couches. No one thought anything of it at first. It was a party, after all. But hours passed, and neither the model nor the actor had come back. Around 4 a.m., whispers started to circulate. The actor had left the room alone, visibly shaken, while the model was nowhere to be seen. Some people claimed to have heard loud voices coming from the room, but no one could say for sure what had happened. It wasn't until later that the rumors started to circulate. The model had been caught in an extremely compromising situation with one of Diddy's close associates, leading to a confrontation that had to be handled by the bodyguards. Sources say that the model, upset and disoriented, had to be escorted out of the party by Diddy himself, who made sure she left quietly in a black SUV. The actor, he was seen later at the bar, downing drinks, but looking completely out of it. No one could get him to talk about what went down, and it seemed like he just wanted to forget the entire night, the escalation. By 5 a.m., the atmosphere had completely shifted. The party had reached a fever pitch, with guests who were still there indulging in everything from drugs to open flirting to aggressive networking. Diddy, however, appeared completely unbothered by the escalating chaos around him. He continued to work the room, chatting with moguls and entertainers, while his entourage ensured that everyone felt taken care of. But the real madness began when a famous, married hip-hop artist, known for his large entourage and outlandish behavior, arrived around 5:30 a.m. His entrance caused a stir, and it wasn't long before the rapper was seen exchanging heated words with one of Diddy's security team members. The confrontation, though brief, became a spectacle, partly because the rapper was noticeably drunk and belligerent. Diddy, as always, remained calm. According to sources who were there, he casually walked over, gave the rapper a firm handshake, and told him, "Chill, this is business. Let's talk in a bit." And just like that, the rapper calmed down, took a seat, and began to sip from a glass of Diddy's Ciroc. As the rapper settled in, Diddy brought out his inner circle, including a few of his top bad boy artists, for a private meeting. It wasn't long before a small group of business executives was seen slipping into a private room behind a velvet curtain. There, negotiations about multi-million-dollar brand deals and endorsements were allegedly happening, all while the party raged on. The grand finale, the peak of madness, came as the sun started rising, signaling that the party was winding down. By this point, Diddy had been surrounded by a mix of artists, athletes, models, and business magnates, who were either still talking deals or looking for an escape from the party's overwhelming energy. Then, in an unexpected twist, a private helicopter appeared above the mansion, the blades whirring as it descended onto the rooftop. It was an invitation-only getaway for a select few guests, the kind of thing Diddy often arranged at his parties. Those lucky enough to get the invitation were quickly ushered onto the helicopter for a post-party party, heading to a secret location for more music, more drinks, and more wild interactions. But that wasn't the end. As the helicopter took off, another black SUV was seen driving away with two of Diddy's most famous friends, both top-tier musicians in their own right, spotted leaving the premises. Rumor had it that the two were headed off for a late-night meeting with Diddy about a massive business opportunity, but no one would confirm it. Aftermath. The next day, as Miami recovered from its Art Basel hangover, the stories from the party spread like wildfire. What had truly gone down behind closed doors was still a mystery to most, but a few key figures who attended quietly confirmed that it was one of the wildest, most intense nights in recent memory. Diddy, ever the businessman, played the perfect host, making sure the media buzz surrounding the event only heightened his legend. The rumors about the supermodel, the rapper, and the businessman swirled, but no one ever dared to fully speak about what had happened behind those closed doors. After all, in Diddy's world, everything was business, and business meant keeping certain things very private. That 2010 freak-off party would go down in the history of Miami nightlife as one of Diddy's most insane, chaotic, and unforgettable nights. The madness, the power plays, and the unspoken deals were all part of the mystique that surrounded him, a party that left everyone who was there both shocked and speechless. And as always, Diddy came out on top, with a new chapter in his empire written in the shadows of that unforgettable night.
One of the most notorious parties Diddy threw during his reign as the ultimate mogul in the late 2000s unfolded in 2008, and it's a story that no one has ever truly been able to piece together. But those who were there never forgot. It was a time when Diddy, still riding high off the massive success of Bad Boy Records and his various business ventures, was known for being able to make any night feel like the stuff of legend. But this particular freak-off party, held in a luxurious mansion overlooking Miami Beach, would leave the world utterly shocked, not just for the wildness of the night, but for the unbelievable series of events that unfolded, all of which would remain buried under layers of secrecy, whispers, and rumors. It all started with an invitation that was more like a challenge than an event notice. A few select people received the coveted black envelope. It wasn't just an invitation to a party, it was an invitation to something bigger, an experience. The cryptic message inside read, "Meet me at 10 p.m. Do you want to play the game? If so, arrive alone. No exceptions." The invitees were told to arrive by private car, and once they reached the mansion, a guard would escort them to the main entrance. No plus ones, no cameras, no reporters. The air of exclusivity was so tight that even the mere fact of being invited was enough to raise the stakes. Diddy wasn't just throwing a party this time. He was throwing an event that would blur the line between business, pleasure, and raw, unchecked hedonism. By the time guests started trickling in, the mansion was already teeming with energy. The expansive property, complete with its private pool, rooftop terrace, and sprawling gardens, had been transformed into a chaotic wonderland. The lights were low, the music loud, and the air was thick with anticipation. Champagne flowed freely, and Diddy's signature Ciroc was being served in every corner of the house. Every room had its own distinct vibe, one with live art installations, another with a DJ spinning deep house, and yet another featuring scantily clad dancers who moved in mesmerizing synchrony. Diddy himself was floating through the crowd with the kind of effortless swag that only he could command. His outfit was immaculate, a black-on-black suit paired with his signature shades, and his aura seemed to make the room buzz even more intensely. But there was something different about this night, something darker, more unpredictable. The guests were an eclectic mix of A-list celebrities, models, tech moguls, and athletes. But behind the scenes, there were whispers that some of Diddy's more powerful, influential contacts were also present, including people whose names were rarely heard in public. Rumors flew that some of the biggest power players in the world were going to leave with deals worth millions. But for now, it seemed like everyone was there for one thing: the experience. Around midnight, Diddy made an announcement from the center of the party, his voice cutting through the buzzing crowd. "Welcome to the Freak Off. Tonight we play by my rules. Anything goes as long as it stays in this house. But remember, what happens here stays here. Play it right and you'll walk away with something you'll never forget." The crowd roared with excitement, not fully understanding what he meant, but instinctively knowing that this wasn't just a typical night. At that moment, a massive screen dropped down, displaying an image of a giant game board, the kind you'd see in a high-stakes poker game. But this was far from a normal bet. This was a game of power, seduction, and influence. Each guest was handed a card with a challenge on it, and no one knew what would happen next. Some of the cards were simple. Get someone's phone number, make someone laugh, take a shot with a stranger. Others, however, were much more risky and dangerous. The game started to take its first unexpected turn when a well-known actress was seen reading her card in disbelief. She'd pulled the challenge of share a private moment with someone of Diddy's choosing. Her face dropped, but she didn't refuse. By this time, she was well known in Hollywood, with a squeaky clean image, but that night she disappeared with Diddy's closest confidant into a secluded part of the mansion. No one knew what transpired in that room, but when she reappeared an hour later, her eyes were red and she seemed distant. She had a look on her face as though she'd seen something she couldn't erase. That was the first shock of the night. Around 2 a.m., the mood shifted. A powerful businessman who was known for his influence in the tech world, a man with rumored ties to some very high-level political figures, had been seen talking to Diddy in a private room. Word spread quickly that Diddy was working on a massive business deal with him, something that would shake the foundations of the entertainment industry. But shortly after they spoke, the businessman seemed agitated. His entourage, a group of bodyguards, executives, and assistants, looked uncomfortable, and whispers flew that Diddy had played some kind of psychological game with the man. The businessman was reportedly trying to leave, but Diddy had his team keep him inside the mansion. No one was allowed to leave, they were told, until the game had finished. The power dynamics were on full display that night, and it became clear that Diddy was not only the host, he was the puppet master, orchestrating the night's events like a grand, twisted performance. Then came the moment that would have the world talking for years. At 3 a.m., the businessman stormed into the main room, demanding that Diddy let him leave. The room went silent. What happened next has been the subject of wild speculation ever since. Diddy reportedly told the businessman that he would have to make a choice, either walk away empty-handed or take the deal of a lifetime, but with consequences. Sources close to the situation have suggested that the businessman hesitated, then made a deal, a secret agreement that involved Diddy using his influence to broker an even larger deal with one of the world's wealthiest figures. The details of that deal were never disclosed, but what was clear was that the businessman was now at Diddy's mercy. What had started as a business negotiation turned into something far darker, a reminder that in Diddy's world, everything was on the table. As the night wore on, more people started to slip away, but the drama was far from over. Around 4 a.m., Diddy's closest friends and some of the world's most powerful moguls had started talking about the real stakes of the night. The final game involved two powerful figures, one an international athlete, the other a top-tier movie producer. The challenge? They were asked to compete for a contract that would secure millions. But the catch was that the contract could only be given to one of them. What unfolded next left everyone speechless. The two men, who had been friends for years, began to argue violently, eventually leading to a physical altercation. The fight wasn't just about the contract. It was about pride, power, and what was at stake. Security had to intervene, but what happened after was even more shocking. Diddy, rather than intervene, simply observed with a smirk. As soon as the fight had finished, he handed the contract to the producer. The athlete had lost, but it wasn't just about the contract. Word later spread that Diddy had orchestrated the entire thing, playing the two men against each other to assert his dominance. As dawn broke, only a handful of guests remained. Some were too dazed to leave, others too frightened by what had happened. Diddy, meanwhile, was already talking to a select group in the corner of the room, making quiet, calculated deals, his power on full display. The remaining guests, who had witnessed the intensity of the night, began to understand the true purpose of the evening. It wasn't just about partying or seduction. It was about power, influence, and control. The freak-off of 2008 would remain one of the most talked-about events in entertainment history. No one would ever confirm exactly what happened behind the doors of Diddy's mansion, but the rumors, the whispers about secret deals, psychological manipulation, and power games would never die. The guests left with a feeling that they had been part of something historic, something dangerous, and something far beyond a simple party. What no one could deny was that Diddy had once again proven that he was the master of his own world, and that, in his universe, nothing was ever what it seemed.
One of the wildest and most unbelievable freak-off parties Diddy threw took place in 2011, during the height of his empire's power. The event wasn't widely publicized, but it became infamous after the fact. An underground tale whispered through circles of celebrities, moguls, and a select few who were lucky or unlucky enough to attend. It was a night so chaotic, so unhinged, and so unpredictable. It left everyone who was there questioning whether it was all a carefully orchestrated performance, or if Diddy had somehow pulled them into a world they couldn't even fathom. The invitations were sent out a week before the event. They weren't physical invites, but came in the form of an encrypted email, which instructed guests to check into a high-end hotel in Miami at a specific time on a particular night. The email contained nothing but a date, a time, and a set of instructions. Arrive alone, wear black, no phones, no cameras, just trust. For those who received the invite, it was a no-brainer. This was Diddy, the man who knew how to throw the most legendary parties in the world. By this time, he wasn't just throwing parties for fun. He was an icon, and everyone knew that anything connected to him was going to be a spectacle. Guests knew the drill. Show up, look sharp, and let Diddy take care of the rest. The hotel where the invitees were told to check in became the pre-party meeting spot, with Diddy's security team already posted at the entrance. As soon as people arrived, they were escorted to a back room. Inside, the scene was tense, the air heavy with anticipation. Celebrities, business moguls, athletes, and a few select figures from the fashion world mingled, some with curious expressions, others trying to act cool, but everyone could feel that something big was coming. Around 10 p.m., Diddy's security rounded up everyone and led them outside to a fleet of blacked-out SUVs. No one knew where they were going, but as they were driven through the quiet streets of Miami, the sense of mystery only deepened. The ride took about 30 minutes, but it felt like hours, as if the anticipation was building with every turn of the wheel. At one point, the car stopped abruptly, and everyone was instructed to get out and follow a few security guards through a dimly lit path. That's when they saw it. A sprawling mansion perched on a hill overlooking the ocean. The lights were dim, but there was an eerie, almost otherworldly glow surrounding the entire estate. As the group made its way to the front door, the air was thick with the kind of energy you'd expect before a huge event. But there was also something unsettling about it, like everyone was walking into a trap, but didn't want to admit it. Once inside, the atmosphere shifted. The house was massive, with high ceilings, velvet curtains, and extravagant art installations that seemed to breathe with life. Music played in the background, but it wasn't the usual club beats. Instead, a mix of classical music, distorted hip-hop, and haunting electronic sounds filled the space. The crowd was different, too. Diddy's infamous freak-off parties were known for being an eclectic mix of people, from rising stars to billionaires to people who preferred to stay behind the scenes. But this time, it felt like something more. There were whispers that some of the guests were actually part of Diddy's inner circle. Not just celebrities, but power players who had no business being in the same room together. But the wildest part, the guests who seemed the most ordinary were the ones who didn't belong at all. It wasn't long before people started noticing that some attendees weren't just there to party, they were there to do business. But as the night went on, it became clear that the party wasn't about business deals, power moves, or even wild indulgence. It was about control, and Diddy had total command. Around midnight, Diddy finally appeared on a raised platform, addressing the guests with a microphone. His presence was magnetic, as always, but there was something off about his demeanor, a sharpness to his voice that made everyone in the room stand still. "Tonight's different," he said, his voice commanding. "Tonight, we play the game. And if you don't understand the rules, you'll be gone before the night ends. With those words, he gestured to a giant screen behind him, which flickered to life. On the screen appeared a series of challenges, cryptic, strange, and often dangerous. Each person in the room was given a playing card with a number on it. As Diddy spoke, the room fell into a heavy silence. The game had begun. The challenges ranged from bizarre to downright uncomfortable. Some guests had to perform outrageous dares, like making out with a complete stranger, while others were tasked with completing tests of skill or manipulation. But there was one challenge that would make the entire night infamous: the final challenge. As the game moved forward, the crowd began to split into smaller groups. People were seen whispering to each other, sizing up their competitors. Diddy wasn't just overseeing the game, he was manipulating it, steering things in directions no one could predict. You couldn't just play the game. You had to outsmart everyone around you, and to do that, you had to stay in Diddy's good graces. But then, at 3 a.m., the final challenge arrived. The guests with the highest cards were called to the center of the room. These people, the chosen ones, were about to be given a choice: complete a dangerous task that would secure them something irreplaceable, or walk away with nothing. The task: to break into a private vault hidden within the mansion, a vault filled with millions of dollars worth of rare art, jewels, and signed contracts. But there was a catch. The vault could only be opened with a special combination, one that Diddy alone controlled. The challenge was simple: convince Diddy to reveal the combination. Some people tried to bribe him, others tried to charm him, but Diddy was always 5 steps ahead, playing everyone's weaknesses against them. It wasn't until one young actress, who had been playing the game flawlessly up until that point, approached him that things truly took a strange turn. She asked him, with a sly smile, if she could earn the combination. What happened next has been the subject of much speculation. Diddy, ever the master of control, whispered something in her ear. She nodded, visibly shaken, before walking away with a new resolve. Moments later, the vault opened. What was inside? No one knows for sure, because the guests who witnessed it were never seen again. When the clock hit 5 a.m., the mansion began to empty. Some guests left quietly, their heads down, trying to shake off the intensity of what they had just experienced. Others, however, looked completely different, as if they had seen something so life-altering they couldn't comprehend it. The young actress who had cracked the vault's code was gone by sunrise, and no one knew where she had gone. Some whispered that she'd been given an offer she couldn't refuse, a career-making deal. Others claimed she had disappeared entirely, never to be heard from again. The next day, a few of the people who had attended the party began to tell their stories. But they were vague, fragmented, and contradictory. There were rumors of people making multi-million-dollar deals, getting blackmailed, and witnessing things they could never unsee. Most shocking of all was the suggestion that Diddy had orchestrated the entire night, not just as a party, but as a massive social experiment to see how far people would go for power, wealth, and fame. The freak-off of 2011 would go down as one of the most bizarre, shocking, and elusive parties in Diddy's history, and possibly in modern celebrity culture. The combination of business, hedonism, and psychological manipulation was unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. And to this day, no one knows what really happened in that mansion, or what Diddy's true intentions were. But the rumors, the whispers, and the mystery continue to swirl around that night, and everyone who attended knows one thing for sure: Diddy played them all. and they would never be the same. But